One of my favorite parts of the second Rebuild film is the sequence showcasing Tokyo 3, set to an infectious track from 1979's The Man Who Stole the Sun. The sequence highlights the everyday lives of its characters and flexes the budgetary advantage these films have over their television counterpart. Since it happens fairly early in the film, it prepares one for the character-centric direction ahead, and that will be the subject of this video. You Cannot Advance spends a great deal of its runtime feeling like a slice of life reminiscent of the alternate reality presented in the final episode of the TV series. This comes with new moments, old moments, and reimaginings of old moments. To give examples of the last point, the trip to the Marine Preservation Zone appears to be some sort of nod to the school trip that the Eva pilots missed out on in episode 10, and the bedtime heart-to-heart between Asuka and Shinji evokes memories of episode 9 and episode 12, where this...
ねえ、美里さん。
何？
さっき父さんの言葉を聞いて褒められることが嬉しいって初めて分かったような気がする。それに分かったんだ。僕は父さんのさっきの言葉を聞きたくてエヴァに乗ってるのかもしれないって。
あんたそんなことで乗ってんの？本当にバカね。
became this.
今日は初めて褒めてくれたんだ。初めて褒められるのが嬉しいと思った。父さん、もう僕のことを認めてくれたのかな。美里さんの言ってた通りかもしれない。
あんたって本当にバカね。
And like that, the second installment of the Rebuild series corrects two issues I had with the first installment. One, it feels less like a compilation film, and two, it better balances plot and characters. And although it continues to pull a great deal of inspiration from the television series, as it's basically a loose take on select events from episodes 8 to 19, You Cannot Advance sets itself apart as a completely different animal, providing a more accurate idea of what is to be expected from Rebuild going forward. As stated before, You Cannot Advance is character-driven, and the characters are given plenty of opportunities to speak or interact with each other in ways that do more than service the plot, a welcome contrast to the exposition-heavy nature of the first film. They no longer have the level of complexity or baggage as seen in the TV series, though this film had neither the time or the intent to replicate that. Rebuild is doing new things with familiar faces. For example, Asuka has a new backstory and a new last name to boot. Still, like the religious imagery hidden in the middle of this facility, there's more than meets the eye, and the film does a lot in the limited amount of time it has to do it. Shinji appears more adjusted and confident, Rei expresses more emotion and opens up to others, and Asuka is less abrasive. It lends the characters a sense of progression, and this happier initial hour or so doesn't feel too far removed from the spirit of the more conventional middle section of the TV series, following Asuka's arrival, and that's appropriate seeing how this film is covering that portion of the TV series.
Yes.
While elements like Asuka's one-sided attraction to Kaji are gone, and everyone except the pilots have been reduced to side characters at best, there's usually enough substance to make this drama work at its most basic level if nothing else. Here the characters try to become better people, try to lead better lives. But, as suggested by the title, they cannot advance. Their efforts are met with heartbreak and failure. What appeared to be Asuka's chance to get ahead of her peers and concede to her romantic rival leaves her beaten to a pulp. The party that Rei intended to bridge the gap in a dysfunctional father and son relationship doesn't get to happen. Misato's encouraging words to Shinji leads to her revisiting her worst possible nightmare, and Shinji's refusal to be denied happiness causes the end of the world. The lighter, more accessible initial half happens in order to get viewers to care more about the characters before the torment that dominates the second half of the film. But with that said, there's still plenty to be critical about. One of the most important things to happen in this film is the relationship between Shinji and Rei, something hinted at in the previous film with this exchange.
結局お前の息子は予定通りの行動をとったな。ああ、次はもう少しレイに接近させる。計画に変更はない。14年前からのシナリオ、運命を仕組まれた子供たちか。過酷すぎるな。
Seeing how the filmmakers knew this relationship would play a big role in the story, I am left to wonder why Rei didn't get more attention in You Are Not Alone. Despite Gendo mentioning how he was going to push the two together, there isn't a significant difference between what happens with Rei in 1.0 and the TV series. It would have made more sense to bring these two together sooner and avoid overburdening the sequel. It might have even made up for Shinji's sideline relationships with Misato and his friends, as well as added a little more originality to the story. What if there was some new version of Dance If You Want to Win from episode 9 that paired Shinji with Rei instead of Asuka? Or what if Rei lived with Shinji this time instead of Asuka? Perhaps this is yet another example of how the initial faithfulness to the TV series harms the new story being told. So You Cannot Advance is left with establishing two new characters from scratch and doing most of the heavy lifting for its main romantic pairing. And as said before, the results leave plenty to be desired. Shinji and Rei do get close, and it is cute, like how Shinji giving Rei miso soup and telling her that it will warm her up is paid off later with this.
わからない。ただ、碇君と一緒にいるとポカポカする。私も碇君にポカポカしてほしい。碇司令と仲良くなってポカポカしてほしいと思う。
However, the relationship consists mostly of longing glances and Shinji giving Rei food. One can only imagine how much more substance this would have had in the TV series. In terms of screen time, Asuka might actually spend more time with Shinji than Rei does. Again, the point is made, but this level of drama is at least a little disappointing by Evangelion standards, and I can't help but feel some of this could have been avoided had You Are Not Alone did a few things differently. Or maybe replace the 5-minute action scene at the start of 2.0 with scenes that fleshed out relationships more. Don't get me wrong, the action in this film is fantastic, maybe some of the best to Evangelion's name, but there's plenty of it, and losing one fight in order to improve the character component of a character-driven film seems like a worthy cause. Some people have read the lack of depth as an intentional meta-commentary on the part of the filmmakers, that Rei symbolizes escapism. But at this point in the Rebuild series, I am not exactly convinced. Moving along, the Asuka focus is front-loaded in order to prepare her for her new role as the pilot of the doomed Evangelion, and it kind of had to be done. She was the only pilot that could afford to be placed in that role, and the only available character who had enough of an attachment to Shinji to make his reaction to their fate convincing. 'Remember, Toji was no longer enough of a character to keep the spot he once occupied, and Rei was needed for the climax. Mari, along with not having much of a relationship with Shinji at this point, needed time to shine, and getting Asuka out of the way made that possible. Her presence isn't completely justified or explained here, but her zaniness and mysteriousness brings a different element to the table that helps to make Rebuild its own thing, and there's still plenty of time for the series to justify her. Perhaps the best moment for Mari in the film, taking over a position once held by Kaji, Mari is the one to meet Shinji on the battlefield and motivate him to take action. She questions Shinji's hangups and arguably strikes at the heart of the series itself with the following.
手伝うからさ。乗らないって決めたんだ。乗らないって決めたんだ。乗らないって決めたんだ。だけどまあ、そうやっていじけていたって何にも楽しいことないよ。
There's plenty more to talk about with 2.0, but maybe I'll get back to such things another time. Halfway through the Rebuild series, I still prefer the raw emotional punch and abstract presentation of the original series. However, I don't view Rebuild as a betrayal of the original series either. Taken as an alternate, more accessible version of Evangelion, at worst these have been perfectly serviceable films thus far. Evangelion goes blockbuster. But there's still far more depth and artistry here to be appreciated than several of your average blockbusters put together. But what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I right? A little bit of this or a little bit of that? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you would like to see more content like this, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing because I would like to see you again next time. But until that time, take care.